excited to share the MedSurg Mindset course, obviously, and just a little more about what you do. But also because I think a lot of people are like, well, Kelsey, you tell everybody not to go the traditional MedSurg route and to not, go right into this. But I also know there are so many nurses who are currently in MedSurg right now. And they're like, they really don't have that option to leave or move, especially in that first year. It can be really hard without having that experience. But I want to be able to help nurses who are in that position to be able to just have the best foundation if you're in that MedSurg area right now. And really just have the resources and the tools to make the best of it. And for those who love MedSurg, which I actually can tell you, I've enjoyed working MedSurg. It's not something long-term I wanted to do, but I just want to be able to support the nurses who A, want to do well where they're at right now and feel confident where they're at, even if their goal is to do something else. And B, those nurses who just really want to stay and they want to love it. They want to love it and thrive in it. So I think we can kind of speak to both of those types of nurses. So I just wanted to be clear about that before we hopped in. But anyway, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat about this underappreciated but badass specialty.
Awesome. And for those of you guys who are watching, if you have any questions, we'll do a little Q&A at the end, just answering some questions. Katie, if you see any questions along the way that you're like, I want to touch on, go ahead and snag them.
Okay. Yeah.
But if any of you guys are new grads here or you're in the MedSurg field and you have any questions, by the way, Katie is a badass go-to for new grad nurses. I'll let her introduce herself, but we've known each other for a really long time. Katie is all things new grad. I've kind of pushed a lot of people her way when they come to me. New grad isn't my specialty. It's not like I'm a pro at that. It's not my expertise. I know a little bit, but Katie's like the new grad expert. So if you're a new grad, you need to go over to freshrn.com and also follow Katie's handle at Katie_Kleber. We'll put all the details. Okay, Katie, tell us about you.
So like you said, my jam is new grads. I had a really rough new grad experience, even though I went to a legit school, passed the NCLEX, did all the right things. I went to a place with a residency, which was great, but I still had a massive learning curve. And I was learning stuff on the fly that I was like, I shouldn't be learning this on the fly, right? I feel like there was an opportunity for appropriate instruction, and then I did not receive it. I did not like that. Right. So, and I've been a nurse for 10 years now, which is kind of wild. But I started off in a cardiac MedSurg, and it was kind of a little bit of a high acuity, some people called it a bit of a step down. We didn't take art lines or anything, but we were pushing adenosine and doing synchronized cardioversions regularly and stuff. And then so I had a rough transition. And I had a lot of anxiety, had a lot of trouble separating work and home. I had great preceptors. I had a residency, but I still was nervous all the time. I was I worked for years to get to this and to feel like this. I thought that I would know what I'm doing after thousands of dollars and countless hours. And I was mad that was my experience. And then, so I had that. I eventually figured out what I was doing and floundered, and I did okay, but it was just this could have been a lot easier. So that was 10 years ago. 2 years later, went into neurocritical care, moved across the country, and enjoyed neurocritical care. Felt like a new grad all over again. Had I had a wonderful preceptor, decent transition, but again, I felt like there was stuff because what I realized is when you do, there's nursing school education, and then there's this gap, and then there's certification education.
Yeah.
But by the time I graduate school, passed the NCLEX, started my unit, it's been 6 months at least since I've had patho information or brush up. I'm studying for a test. I'm not studying to take care of a patient in this specific unit. So what I was okay, I'm going to take the specialties that I have had the privilege to work in, and I'm going to create education that's not this deep dive into all things neuro that affect every neuro patient ever. I'm going to talk about the specific things that land someone in the neuro ICU so
Yeah.
that when you go onto that unit, you know what you're talking, instead of like diving deep into like Parkinson's. While that's an important neural process, Parkinson's is not going to put you in a neuro ICU, right? You're going to have outpatient care for that. And it's important, but if I'm a brand new nurse in neuro ICU, I'll need to be learning about outpatient care of Parkinson's, right? And the same thing with MedSurg, right? I need to learn how, I don't need to learn every little reason why someone can get colon cancer and the prevalence of colon cancer in the United States. I need to learn how to send someone down for a colonoscopy without getting screamed at by the by that doctor because I missed something or they're not clear and now they've been all sedated and it's my fault because I didn't do it right.
I'm literally like recalling the questions on like, you know, NCLEX, you know, test questions or pre-test where it's like, what organization would you have your patient reach out to who has Parkinson's disease or like something along those lines? And you're like, what?
Can I just know what I need to do to like discharge safely? Like, what do I need to know that I'm not missed? You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I felt like there's this big gap of like this practical education that people need to like genuinely not kill people, to genuinely not create bad outcomes. Not because we're like, want to be ignorant. People want to know this information. They just don't know the questions they need to ask. So my role, and one of my favorite things is like, when I was in class and people, they would be talking about stuff and go way over your head. I am someone who's not afraid to ask the question to make me look stupid. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's okay if I look stupid. I just genuinely know what's the right answer. And I'm sitting here like, I know nobody's asking this question, but we all don't know what we're talking about. Like, so I like to step into that space and be like, I will look stupid for y'all and I'll find out the answer and I'll whisper it to you so that you can look smart.
That's awesome. I love it.
So that's kind of so basically that was my nursing experience. But then in 2013, I wrote a book. Maybe some of you have heard of it. It's called Becoming Nursey. That was 7 years ago now. Crazy. So that did pretty well. I started a blog and a website and all that with that same kind of educational premise. And eventually in 2018 started creating online courses to have, instead of just like reading a book, because while that's helpful, you can go way in more depth with video and downloads and that kind of stuff. So that's what I did is now I have all these courses and I did a MedSurg one. I did a cardiac one. I actually have a full residency for people who get hired at a hospital that don't have a residency or there's this kind of subpar. And then I just created one. I have one for ICU and then I just created one for MedSurg. It took me a while because y'all, MedSurg is there's a lot.
That's intense. Yeah, and I think like I want you guys to understand, Katie and I both identified within our profession that there's so much that you kind of just don't know what you don't know. You just go into nursing and you're like, oh, it's a professional world. So this is like what they teach us is the nursing Bible, and we must be being given what we're supposed to know. But reality is that we identified, or Katie specifically identified, so many gaps in the, onboarding process for nursing. And like, I think in my way that I see things with whole life nursing, I say, there's such a better way to do this. She said, there's such a better way to do this. And I think it's easy just to sit back and not do anything about it. But she was like, you know what? No, we're going to do something different. And then this wonderful thing called social media comes about and we're like, hey, we can go educate the masses about what really freaking matters. and her stuff, guys, like I can't boast Katie enough. I can't boast her because she's brilliant. She's way smarter than I am. And she's just so good at what she does. So again, if you're a new grad, you need to get over there. But I just get so excited about her stuff because I know that all the pain points she had are the same things that I struggled with as a new grad. And I always think about I was always really confident as a human. Like I was that crazy girl in nursing school that was playing guitar on Sunday nights instead of studying. Like I was at a coffee shop playing guitar, which is probably why I didn't do so great. but my point is that I think that there are just so many, I'm having pregnancy brain right now about my train of thought, what I was about to say, but there's just so many things that we don't know and that we aren't really told. And it's Katie's stuff fills in the gap where we just aren't really, you know, we just feel, oh, I know what I was going to say. As humans, I was really confident as a human being. Like, I was like really confident in my, like, as who I was as a person, but you're almost like an infant as a brand new nurse. You're like learning the world. You're learning a whole different new world.
Yeah.
And it's so scary because you can be confident outside as a human in your role as a nurse, a friend, or as a friend, a wife, or whatever. But when you step into your role as a nurse, you are a baby and you're so vulnerable. You don't know what you don't know. It's scary. You're
And
kind
people's lives are in your hands.
Yeah. And it's like,
The stakes are high.
It's scary. It's so scary. Oh my
Y'all,
gosh,
it's scary. And if you're scared, we hear you, we see you, we know you're trying to put a brave face on.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because it's this tough balance because you want to look capable.
Yeah.
You want to look smart, but you're also like, I really don't know a lot. I don't know if I should say how much I don't know because I don't want to look like I can't fit into this role.
Yep.
And the truth is, most people do fit into that role. We all have this huge learning curve. And one other thing too is, oh my, I just hit my table. Sorry. One other thing I felt like is I had that mentality where just tell me what I need to know and I'll do it. And I felt and this is one thing I talk about in all of my courses, not just like the residency or like a specialty course, but it's just like, we think that it's about just tell me the information. So an information transfer, but really becoming a nurse and learning how to be a safe, capable nurse on your unit is so multifaceted and dynamic. It has to be more like experiential learning, not an information transfer, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't just read about how to start an IV, read about AFib. I need to feel how long it takes to go get the IV supplies, know what the supplies are, know where the IV pump is, the tubing, the fluids, and I need to feel what it's like to know how long it takes to get that, to go to the patient, to talk to them, to tell them what I'm going to do, to find a vein, to do everything. I mean, when you all these small things individually are these like little mundane things, but when you put them all together, it's actually like this complex task that you have to safely complete and document and do in a timely fashion. That is extraordinary when you can get that all done. But you think, oh, I just have to read about it and perform. And if I don't perform, something's wrong with me. I'm not meant for this role. And it's this mind trap or mind you know?
All I'm saying is the poop emoji in my head.
Oh,
this is crap.
And and if you're in that mental place, how are you going to perform?
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm going to flounder, and then I'm just going to be in this terrible negative thought cycle, and I'm going to have the worst morale. And I think that's why a third of us quit after a year, right?
Because I wanted to speak to this too. I get a lot of nurses right now who are in nursing school or they're new grads who have transitioned during this COVID situation. And they're like, I feel like I was robbed of being prepared.
Yes.
I feel like I was robbed of not having the experience I needed. My opinion on that, and I'd love for you to speak to this, is that I tell nurses all the time, I'm like, listen, like clinical's great. It's sort of just like a perk added. Like you're getting used to getting into a hospital. You smell C. diff, maybe you get to like put on a isolation gown, you know, whatever. But the real, in my honest opinion, yes, there are definitely perks to being able to go to clinical. But it's in my opinion, it's not a make or break as to whether you're going to be successful in your first year or not. I mean, would you agree with that, Katie?
You know, I have had many emails about that too, and it's like, I missed this clinical, and it's like, yes, I do think clinicals helped me. Do I think it was make or break? No, because when you go from clinical to bedside with your license, right, most of the time you're not at the same hospital. So all the policies and procedures are totally different, right? If you're someone who is coachable, teachable, adaptable, accountable, reliable, you will figure that out.
Right.
Having that classroom knowledge is super helpful. The one of the things that I love to compare this to, because it's such a dynamic, learning how to be the nurses, there's so many things to it. It's not just this one little thing. It's a big multitude of tasks and knowledge that you have to actively put together. I like to compare it to like learning how to do some other complex thing, like learning how to be a high level performer in basketball, which I was compared to that. I play basketball, but it's like you have to learn. Like I compare clinicals to classroom is like sitting in a classroom and learning about basketball and the rules of it and the history, right? Like, okay, that's great. And learning the rules of the game, incredibly helpful, like kind of like learning the pathophysiology.
Right.
It's important to learn that. Clinical is like, all right, I'm gonna go pick up a ball in a gym by myself. I'm gonna shoot around.
Right.
That's important and helpful, but that's not like just because you didn't be able to do that a couple times.
Yeah.
Like, it's not gonna make or break whether or not you can hop on the floor and go up and down. Like there's a point where you just have to get into it.
Yeah.
And mess up and try and experience it.
Yeah.
But yeah, people do freak out about losing that clinical, which I mean, I certainly don't think it's going to be make or break. I know hospitals, and I think, you know, I hope that my education can help prepare people. I've actually had some nursing schools and a couple hospitals use my programs for those people who have lost that clinical experience.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It's important. I mean, like I have that same perspective. Being this far out of it, like I don't want it to be something where you're losing sleep over, you're being anxious about, because when you become a new nurse, you're going to feel lost either way.
That was my point. You're like, you feeling like you're a fish out of water isn't because you didn't have clinical. Like you're just a normal new grad.
Right. You know, when you are in clinical, right, it's such a different ballgame because you're with someone, your license isn't on the line because you don't have a license. The doctor isn't talking to you; they're talking to the nurse. Like you're kind of observing, and while you're doing a lot, and I don't want to devalue it. It is important, but like it is so different than actually having your license and you have a preceptor, and that ownership and accountability level is very different. So yeah, I definitely think that it's certainly not make or break. It's certainly helpful and a part of development, but I don't want it to be something where anyone loses any sleep over it.
Yes, I agree. 100%. Cool. Okay. So I want to get into, I am like so pumped for Katie's MedSurg Mindset course because I get so many questions from nurses who are in MedSurg. I pushed a lot of cardiac nurses her way, a lot of neuro nurses. She's got some great resources we'll talk about at the end there on that. But with this mindset, this MedSurg Mindset course, so I want you to just share a little about like what it is, sort of educating about the course, but also just like speaking to the common pain points that so many nurses, and maybe we can give them a little value, we will, on sort of just how to navigate this world of med-surgness. But just tell us a little about that in the course and sort of just, you know, what you've got going on over there.
So I've got my master's, and when I did my master's in nursing education, I had the privilege of being able to observe a new grad residency. And one of the things, and it was really awesome. Like in a hospital, also it is one that is nationally accredited. So I got to see kind of peel back and see behind the scenes, and I got to talk to a lot of new grads and who are actively experiencing MedSurg Orientation. And the things that they were most worried about is what I focused on in the course.
Awesome. Yeah.
So those things were report. Report is the biggest. So I have people message me to say, I clock in. It's 7:02. I am dreading 7:02 p.m. when I have to take a report.
Oh my God.
I'm nervous about, like, your report is kind of like your report card, right? You're so nervous to report to this night shift nurse who's going to ask, or day shift nurse, whichever one, who's going to ask you all these questions, and you're not going to know the answers, and you're not going to feel like you've been here for 12 hours and done nothing. So we go through report, and not just here's an example of report or what you need to talk about. It's here's when you get to the unit, before your shift, these are the couple things I want you to write down before you start, and couple things I want you to double check, and why I want you to double check them, why report is so important. This is what I want you to pay attention to during report, and then this is also how I organize my report sheets and my task list so that I know how to get through things. Because one thing I learned too is, again, I assumed information transfer. Everyone does this the same way. Everybody does this different. Yeah. Everybody does their whole, how I make sure I check my task list. Like some people use a grid single sheet paper. Some people write checklists on each report sheet. And how do they keep their brains organized? So I have two different examples of ways that me and someone else that we did it for years and really liked the way we organized it, and did videos to show here's how you organize a report sheet so you don't miss stuff. because I would see people do it very inefficiently, and then I'd see some people do it well, but I didn't know which was the best because I didn't know what I didn't know. So we do that. Talk a lot about giving report yourself, a lot about time management.
Awesome.
One of the things that I realized was nursing school talks a lot about ABCs and urgent situations and textbook ways to navigate those. And while those happen, they're the exception and not the rule. Most days you clock in and patients are stable, but they have a lot of non emergent needs. Like someone needs to pee, someone needs a pain med, someone is throwing up. So there's a physician at the front and a family member on the phone. How do I handle that?
Yeah.
So we have a bunch of situations like that where we go through and say, as an experienced nurse, this is how I navigate that. And I don't know, there's like 15 or 20 of those where we go.
That's awesome. That is so helpful because it's like, you know, like I'm so far removed from that beginning point, but I remember that being so overwhelming of like, you know, I literally felt like I was in a bubble, just like Finding Nemo or something, trying to like go into the nurse's station and like, okay, what tunnel do I go down?
Exactly. Like I remember being like, I have so many things to do all at the same time. I don't even know where to start. And I'm like almost in tears trying to think about it. And all of the, like none of the patients were dying.
Yeah.
I would know I needed to deal with that first.
Yeah.
But 3 or the 5 of them were mad at me because I wasn't doing it fast enough. And who should I piss off? I don't know how to handle it.
And then your preceptor's like, hey, I'm going to run downstairs and get coffee. You got this? And you're like, no.
And they give you their phone. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's real life. Like that happens. So yeah,
I have a big section on that. And not only that, too, one of the things is like, not only those little situations, I also didn't know how to view the shift as a whole.
Right.
Like, what should I be doing around 1 o'clock? The only thing I had to go off of were med times, right? Yeah. Like I have to do that's when I know I have to be somewhere.
Yeah.
But so I have a section called the anatomy of a shift. Yeah. And I go through roughly, this is kind of what your brain should be thinking about during this period of time and this period of time and this period for both day and night shift, because a lot of people who start out do end up on nights. Just to give structure so you're not totally lost. Because unless your preceptor has great time management, which some of them do, but a lot of them don't, they kind of just go from task to task without like a big picture in mind. And end up actually being inefficient because of that. I wanted to give a framework so that you could kind of, okay, it's around 11 a.m. kind of what I should be doing, not just considering med due times. So there's a big section on that. And then I have another section on pathophys, but it's very high level, very, it's, you know, this is what you need to know about your pneumonia patients. This is the basic patho brush up.
So helpful.
Because it's like, I know you're overwhelmed right now with information. You're not going to remember the intricate details with all the very big words that we can't remember what they mean exactly. Like
atelectasis.
Yeah, your alveoli and all, you know, all that. So I talk about, high level patho so that you can, it's basic, easy to understand with the top disease processes that are putting someone in a med unit. So, and then also your like specific things you want to do for that kind of patient, ways you can explain it to them and educate them. So section on that. And then I also have a section on the common things that also they can be just as big of a problem as a chief complaint, but like patients who have diabetes, patients who are addicted to pain medications, patients who, renal failure, other big comorbidities that influence that main diagnosis a lot that you're going to have to like deal with. So we have those sections as well as like general patient care. Like this is how you do a MedSurg assessment. It's not like an ICU one, certainly not in like an ED one. In the middle. How do we do that? Because you can't do incredibly detailed because you got to do that for 5 patients.
Yeah, exactly.
And you got to chart it. So it's like you can't do an ICU. You can't do an ICU assessment. You can't. Yeah. It's not practical. Yeah. Why are we acting like we need more is better? More is not better.
Yeah.
I have to do too much to do everything possible for 5 people. No, I need to make it realistic. So talk about that. I'm interested to know if you had this experience. Learning how to use an IV pump and IV tubing
Yeah.
Primary and secondary, and then a PCA. As a new nurse, that was so confusing to me.
Yeah, like, wait, what? Like, where does this one go? And how does this piggyback? And when do I unclamp this one? And can I hang this with my... Yeah, like...
So I talked about that. So y'all don't have to look...
Who's got the PCA key? Like, is it in your pocket? I don't even know if they have keys anymore.
They do. But I was like, I talk about that so that you can look awesome in front of your preceptor to be like, ask the right questions. So you don't have to ask them to explain to you primary versus secondary 6 times like I had.
It's awesome.
Oh, and then I do also have a section too. And when I was in MedSurg, often, you don't have a lot of codes. You have some, but you don't have a lot. But I do kind of like, here's what you should do in a because like the way an ICU responds to a code and the way the ED responds to a code is different than the way MedSurg does. Yeah. It's imprudent to talk about codes just from a global perspective as opposed to this is how your unit, because a MedSurg is like, let's just get compressions going until the ICU people show up and then we can tell them what happened. And they take over, and that's how it should function. Right. We try to tell MedSurg nurses like who have never done it before, try to get them to memorize the ACLS algorithm. Like, I'm sorry, while that's helpful to know ACLS, if someone's dying in front of you, I don't remember the epi doses. I don't remember the atropine doses. Like, what do I do? So I talk about that, and then I also talk about how to practically take care of someone who didn't die from a code, but a patient who's there for comfort care or hospice. Right. Like, it's really jarring to take care of someone actively dying for the first time. If you've never been in front of someone literally dying in front of your eyes and people are looking at you to tell them what's going on. Yeah. That's scary. So I put a bunch of information about just how to be in that situation as a nurse, practically what you can do, but also just your demeanor and how you should be in that situation. So I have sections on that too.
That's awesome.
That's the course.
Yeah, no, and it's just like, I think what so many people don't realize is that we go into nursing and we kind of just assume that like our preceptor is a pro, like they know everything. They're the best person for us. They are going to teach us the ropes. But what you realize is that a lot of people in leadership positions in the nursing world, not all of them, but some of them, like it's going to be hard to find 5 awesome preceptors on one unit. Like everybody's different. Everyone has different personalities. Everyone has different ways of doing things. And the chances of you getting the perfect preceptor are very slim. There's no such thing as a perfect preceptor. So I think what I love about the thing with Katie's stuff is like, you kind of go into it. And if you do end up with somebody who isn't, the best teacher, or you feel like you're not really getting what you need, like you're going to have this awesome course to be like, hey, listen, like this person you're working with, might be a little bit of a hot mess. She might be a little bit helpful, but like, here's the nitty gritty. Here's what you really need to know. And again, these preceptors aren't really going through like a thorough, training on all the things Katie talks about. They're sort of just going through these basic, here's the paperwork we've had for 10 years. Here's the training we've had for 10 years. Like just go home, read this, take the test. We'll give you the little check mark. You can put preceptor on your resume and go teach everyone else. Like that's kind of how it goes.
No, okay, so I know people. I know behind the scenes. That's how it works. You maybe get a little preceptor class and they talk about like adult theories of learning and stuff. Right. But they don't go through it and say, all right, guys, let's brush up on the pathing of these things so that you can teach the patients. Somehow what happened was you graduate from nursing school and you all of a sudden, for the next 50 years, can regurgitate pathophysiology of pancreatitis. Right. No, you can't. Like, there's no actual content review for preceptors. It's a little bit of very high level. Here's how you teach adults. Yeah. And it's usually outdated. And also, like you said, supply and demand is an issue with preceptors. Yeah. You only have so many nurses on a unit, right? And there might be some that are phenomenal nurses, but their ability to communicate their thought processes and educate someone else about it is is a whole different ballgame. Right. And to have a level of self-awareness to say, hey, wait, is the way I'm teaching somebody really working? Is it not? And like precepting is very challenging, and there's a lot of people who are in those roles that it's not their favorite thing and it's not their jam. They're a much better nurse for their patients than they are to other nurses. So my goal with this was to kind of be a preceptor in your pocket for when you don't have that kind of support. And I'm not throwing shade to preceptors. Like
I'm not either.
It's
awesome
hard.
I've had awesome ones. So
yeah, I had an awesome one, but I also know that I knew phenomenal nurses who were great at their job, but that was not their jam. Like they were like, if they had to like teach someone else how to do something, they weren't great at it, but I knew that they knew what they were talking about.
I'm not a good preceptor. I'm like, what is it? Do as I say, not as I do. That was like me.
Right. And then, and I can also, so I was asked to be a preceptor after just like a year and a half, where I still really didn't know what I was doing. Right. I knew what to do, but I didn't truly fully understand why I was doing certain things. I just knew that's what we do. Right. So if I'm thrown into the preceptor role, I can't explain the rationale behind my answers, but then someone else who's learning genuinely wants to know those as they should. So then I'm like, ugh, I don't know what I'm supposed to know. And then you can, So actually, I also in this course and all my other courses do talk about how to navigate preceptors.
That's awesome.
Like how to deal with the overbearing preceptor versus the disengaged preceptor, and how to try to get in the middle, and then how to navigate it when it's like, this is a terrible match.
Yeah.
I can't do this. Like, how to navigate that situation. So I go through that kind of stuff.
Yeah. How to kind of address that and not just sit back and go, oh, this is just how it is. Like, I'm sure you share, like, these are your solutions and steps you can take to deal with the situation, probably on your own. And then also, I'm sure there's some escalation steps to take or that kind of stuff. Okay, cool.
And it's very whole life nursing. Like, hey, this is how you, as a professional, take accountability for your own education.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, oh, this is the lot I've got, this is the part I was dealt. No. Yeah. Like, if you are going to an organization and you have a nursing license and they need you to perform nursing skills, like, they're responsible for providing that how they want it to be done to you. And if they give you like a terrible experience, like, that's not part of this. No, that's not part of it. I need to advocate. And to be honest, I know a lot of educators at hospitals, managers at hospitals. And what happens is nurses new to a unit are having a terrible experience, but the manager and educator have no idea because they're not sitting with you all day. There's 40 others who are going through it at the same time. Right. So unless you tell someone, they have no idea that that's what's going on. So we have to give support for people to navigate that situation.
Yeah. And that is like, I think that's a huge pain point for new grads too, is just the whole preceptor. I get that question and those issues all the time. And this is why Katie does what she does. And I send everybody to her, because if I were to tell you what to do, I would be like, I would look them in the face and be like, I am so sorry you've had a traumatic issue as a child. And I
let's navigate that.
I'll send you to some resources. But like, I just, I have this, but anyway, so guys, I know we're talking about MedSurg Mindset stuff, but Katie's resources are so clutch. They're so good. You need to go over to freshrn.com and check out all of her courses and all the things that she has to offer. But before we get to some Q&A, Katie, can you tell them, I have, just FYI guys, I have a link to Katie's MedSurg Mindset course, and it's 40% off until tomorrow. Is that right? Or
so what I've done is I try to make these courses as cost effective, because you get contact hours with them.
Awesome.
So there's certainly cost involved in creating them, all that. So I try to make the cost as low as possible, so I don't do discount codes.
That's awesome.
So people message me and ask for codes. I don't do that because I make the courses as cheap as possible, so that, oh, I forgot to put the code in. Help me out.
Right.
No, let's just make them as affordable as possible. At the normal price for it, you get 10 contact hours, lifetime access. So you can look at it as many times as you want. You can pull it up on your phone and look at it when your preceptor asks you a question you're not sure, and you go to the bathroom and you just look at them real quick. So its normal price is $197. That will be its price as of Saturday. So right now it's $119.
Yes.
So if you want to get it for that, and it's got lifetime access, self-pay. So if you're like, I'm not graduating for another semester, but I know I'm probably going to work MedSurg or float MedSurg, you can always buy it and then wait and then go through it then. Or even if you've already started, one of the things that doesn't have to be right when you start orientation. I guess I forgot to say this. So I worked with MedSurg probably a total collectively of 4 years. And then I have a co-worker who helped me write this course. She has worked in it for 15 years. And she's a preceptor, mentor, charge nurse, shared governance committee person. And then I have another nurse who actually graduated just 2 years ago. So I loved that. And she's very smart.
Yeah.
She's also a preceptor. And so us three wrote the course together with the experienced nurse, the kind of middle ground, but educator. And then the newer nurse put our heads together and created it. So it's like, even if you just started a few months ago, you've got the knowledge of like 3 nurses from like 20 plus years of experience that you can learn from. That took us years to learn this stuff.
Right.
Like, you don't have to make the mistakes we made.
Yeah.
And look like idiots or had like terrible anxiety because.
No, I mean, there should be like nursing diagnosis on the DSM. Like we should have issue or whatever that, like we need our own.
Yes.
But what I was going to say was, you guys, the reason like Katie's stuff, it aligns so much with what I teach on Whole Life Nurse, because I believe that you become a more confident, assertive, secure nurse who can advocate for your value, who can advocate for what you bring to the table when you start with a strong foundation as a nurse, okay? And her course is going to give you the courage, it's going to give you the skills, it's going to give you the knowledge, the mindset to be able to feel confident that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing. And when you're able to kind of tap into that confidence and connect with that, it's going to come out in your care. It's going to come out amongst, your coworkers are going to feel it. And it's just going to contribute to, in my opinion, testimonials and getting praises from your patients and praises from your manager and your coworkers. And those are things that you can take with you. Those are things you can take with you in your career to use as leverage when you want to negotiate and advocate for your value as a nurse, right? So this is why, like, there's just so many elements of nursing. And I mean, honestly, like, it is so critical starting out. I mean, you're just a fish out of water. And I kind of just like feel those who like succeeded really well without someone like Katie. I'm like, you're just blessed, like,
yes.
It
doesn't have to be that hard. That's why I don't want it to be that hard. And I love that you said that, because in the course, we talk about assertiveness. Yeah. And we talk about how to have the right mindset, which is exactly what so if you can hit the ground running with those kinds of skills, and also it helps you learn better because you don't take missteps, miscommunications personally. You can be more objective and navigate your learning experience better, because if that provider said something rude or that patient fired you or that whatever, you're like, you don't take it. Like, it's not gonna knock you down. You're going to be able to navigate it better and have a better learning experience, and ultimately be able to disconnect between work and home so that you can enjoy your life at home. Because while you're a nurse at work, that doesn't mean that that's your entire identity. And how to navigate being a whole person who has needs outside of the hospital. And that's just, it's great to start off with a balanced perspective.
And guys, like, you look at these professional courses and things that the nursing world offers and how freaking expensive they are. And then, like, after you're done taking them, like, don't get me wrong, I'm all about like accreditations and getting certifications and all those things. That is so awesome. But Katie's courses are so affordable, and they are just as valuable, if not, in my opinion, more valuable than, I think certifications are great, but I think you need that foundation before you move on to that next level. And it's just, again, her courses are so valuable. They're so affordable. And I just get excited because we love nurses, and we just want to see you guys succeed. And we have identified the pain points that this profession has. And it's why we do what we do, because we just want, we want to see it change. We want to normalize the healthy and right way to go about this than to just, let the paperwork from 10 years ago guide your care today, so.
I know. Oh, God.
Yeah, so
could not have said it better myself. And I think one of the ways that I like to think about it too, and the way that I actually think about these, because nurses do this, is you think about a purchase the way in hours you have to work, right? So like if I want to go on a trip, that's like 4 or 5 weeks of overtime. But then, I mean, at 120, if you're making $30 an hour, which is what a lot of people are making, that's like 4 hours and 4 hours of work, and you're going to get 20 hours of content. So I feel like the trade-off is there.
You can't put a price on peace of mind. Like you cannot. So you guys can check out the MedSurg Mindset course. And then, like you said, you can go follow Katie, and we'll be here for you for the rest of, the existence of the internet. So
we're here. We're around as long as that's around. Yeah.
All right. Katie, thank you so much. Man, we're coming up on an hour. I love it.
I didn't even feel like it. I can't believe it's an hour.
I know. All right. So we love you guys. We'll talk to you soon. And yeah, thanks, Katie.
All right. Bye, guys.